Simon. I think protected areas, by definition, are areas that we have decided, for one reason or another, are deserving of protection. Now, protection doesn't necessarily mean that there can be absolutely nothing done in it. It just means that if something is going to be done, it has to be studied properly. And you have to make a decision knowing exactly what you're giving up and what it is that you're going to get. It also means that you have to try and find ways to minimize any damage that's going to occur as a consequence. And more importantly, it means that at the end of the day, you must end up with an area that is still able to perform the same values and functions.
Same biological
values.
Ecological values.
We just saw some footage of mountain wetlands now, which is again, I have to confess to not knowing anything about that. What is that about, and what do we do about protecting that and so on?
Well, as I mentioned before, the Ramsar Convention does have a very broad definition of wetlands.
Right.
And in Jamaica, we actually have the highest example of a wetland in the Caribbean at Mason River.
It's not up at Pinnacle, is it?
No, it's
okay.
No, it's at Mason River, which is very close to the border between Clarendon and St. Anne.
Right.
And at that wetland, it doesn't have mangroves, which is a part of why we have to broaden this discussion. It has a lot of freshwater plants, right? So it's got the sphagnum moss that was mentioned before, a lot of carnivorous plants. It's got some wonderful examples of what we'd call prehistoric plants like tree ferns and other.
And the carnivorous ones that we saw in the thing. All right. And there you go. As we speak of the sort of devil. All right, we have to take a break on Live at 7. When we come back, we'll find out if you know anything about wetlands, because we'll be asking that question about from our Facebook correspondents when we come back on Live at 7 in just a bit. All right, we are back on Live at 7. So we went to Facebook because we're talking about our wetlands, protected areas. World Wetlands Day was on February 2, and that's what we've been talking about. And we wanted to find out if many of you knew about the wetlands and how important they are. So, do you know what a wetland is and the purpose it serves? Darrell says it's land that can absorb large volumes of water and saves us from flooding, marshes and swamps, I think. Sikoni says, wetland is a land area saturated by water. It's like a sponge and it's useful to prevent flooding. Right? Easy, says Lestat. It's a beach. I hope that's not your real name, Lestat. Otherwise, your parents have a good sense of humor after watching Interview with the Vampire. Fabian says, yeah, I do, and they're a very important part of replenishing fish stocks, etc. And Samuel says, off the tip of my head, I suppose it provides a habitat for certain important plants, animals that are part of the circle of life. It sounds to me, Dion, like you have a bit of work to do.
Yes.
In order to educate us as to what it's about. But I suppose your first task is to get people interested.
Right. Indeed.
And how do you go about it as the Supreme Corporate Communications Manager of NEPA?
Well, Simon, we're starting at the school level and also at the tertiary level. In fact, tomorrow in Clarendon, we'll be having a schools debate and expo on wetlands in partnership with the Caribbean Coastal Area Foundation. So that's one of the activities that will culminate tomorrow. And as I mentioned before, we have the farmer training and our open day and unveiling of a permanent display featuring Black River's unique plants, animals, and rich history.
Do you find, because you mentioned high school and tertiary, do you find the high schoolers more appreciative of the information that's coming to them, or is it the tertiary students who are more accepting?
I think it's a balance, both.
And you know, somehow I knew he'd say that. I just knew it.
You know, Simon,
it's a good answer, yes.
Over the years, we've done a lot of these sorts of activities on World Wetlands Day. And one of the places that we've done quite a bit of it is in the Palisadoes Port Royal Protected Area and Ramsar site at the university's Marine Lab. And on a World Wetlands Day, we often get many, many, many young children. And I believe, well, certainly since I've started, and I've been doing this now for quite a few years, as you can tell by the gray in my beard, some of those kids are in high school and university now. And I'm sure that the interest that they developed on some of those things are carrying forward right now.
We've heard from Peter Spute in the feature, and I have to say we've done a number of shows about the environment, and NEPA does come in for a certain amount of stick because there's a general belief that NEPA is one branch of government, UDC is another, UDC sell land to hotel has to build, so it don't make sense. NEPA tell me, say, you're not giving me a permit because of all this linkage. What advice would you have for NEPA in about going forward in trying to protect our crucial areas?
Advice for NEPA? Well, definitely I think, as Peter mentioned, the passing of the regulations, the specific regulations in relation to protected areas, in relation to wetlands, the passing of the new fisheries bill, which will help us, give us the tools to deal with overfishing and some of the impact that would cause. If the government pushed these things through, and they've been on the books for decades in some cases,
yes,
now,
they're
since
not,
before I
they're
started.
not part of the IMF conditionality, so they don't have to go through as quickly.
Unfortunately, so maybe the advice should be to the IMF to put it.
So that one of the ways
And
for us
then-
to be able to pay back our loans is to have fish to sell. But seriously, because you can see what's happened to, say, the North Coast, as you say, I'm assuming it's only a matter of time before the same happens to the South Coast.
Well, that is exactly what we've tried to avoid. We've tried to put in place protected areas and systems so that we make sure that when we're talking about development on the South Coast, it's a different kind of development. It's a different style, a different...
And is there a thought process in NEPA and the Ramsar Committee and so on that, all right, let's write off the other side. We've gone bad already. Let's not make the same mistake here. Is there any of that kind of discussion going on? And don't you guys interact with the environmentalists not on a confrontational basis, as tends to be the case?
As you know, we do react with them on many bases. As I said before, several of the NGOs, CCAM, for example, is a part of the Ramsar Convention. And while we are not willing to say we've lost completely any side of the country, there has been a recognition that there is a significant amount of opportunity on the South Coast in terms of protection. You'll notice that that 3 of the Ramsar sites are actually South Coastal West Wetlands. And I have good news for Brandon. If regulations is what he wants, that's something that's coming. The agency's been actively working. No, I knew he'd say that because
it's the way of the world.
Yeah, and if you've been saying that it's coming
right.
for a while and you haven't been able to deliver, then people will
more believe in Santa Claus than NEPA.
Well, then it's going to be Christmas. That's very soon. This year, in fact.
What about if there is that concerted effort on the South Coast and some of the sites you mentioned? Does that give us a balance back?
Does it give us a balance?
Yeah, as I say, we've screwed up one side of the island. We are protecting the other side. There will be wetlands for kids to see. There will be ecological benefits and so on and so on. We just won't have a 7 Mile beach down at the grill anymore. That's soon gone. But we'll have certain elements on this side that... I know you spray the beach and you're protecting it.
As you mentioned, I have to jump in because, right now, the government through the National Works Agency and efforts of NEPA are in the process of putting down almost a kilometer worth of breakwater to help to protect the beach from erosion. At the same time, the agency is doing stuff to counteract all of the negative human impacts to ensure that the things that have gone wrong change.
All right, this is not the first program we're doing on the environment, and I'm certain it won't be the last. I want to thank all of you for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, based on what I'm going to talk about tonight, maybe I should just get a boat and head out to the mangroves. Because while driving along a row of potholes, which we in Jamaica call a road, it occurred to me that the time has come for some serious protest by motorists regarding the condition of our roadways. You know, we motorists pay a tidy sum each year for road tax, registration, insurance, etc. And what do we get? Oftentimes, a lovely bill from your mechanic for front-end parts and labor. And yet each year, respective governments have no shame about adding to the road tax, knowing full well that the roads are substandard. And I think it's highly unfair. And yet, how do we, the humble motorists, express our dismay? Well, should we get together and stand outside the Transport and Works Ministry demanding justice? Do we refuse to pay the road tax and run the risk of never seeing your car again? Or do we vote this government out and only vote for the party that promises to fix roads? All right, forget that part because we do it already. Or maybe this is the answer. Every time your car is damaged by a pothole or substandard road, take the government to court for compensation for repairs. Now, I know this would further clog up the courts, but just one successful case could cause government to settle out of court in the future. Nah, that can't work. There'd be so many claims government would need another debt exchange and a loan from the IMF to satisfy them. Maybe my next vehicle will be a lovely 8-wheel tipper truck. Watch out, taxi and bus drivers. All right, that's it for our program this evening. Tomorrow night, should MPs live in their constituencies? Don't miss the program. Thanks to our guests this evening. As usual, thanks to you for watching, and thanks to our hard-working crew. Happy birthday, Bob Marley. I'm Simon Crosskill. Join me tomorrow live at 7.